Hello, everyone. Captivate, last two chapters, Vanessa Van Edwards. She is a great speaker. When she talks about how she's so awkward and she breaks out in hives and all this stuff, it just doesn't seem possible. I'm listening to this on Audible and then reading it along the side. And she sounds so confident. I'm like, really, that's your life. So I also feel like this difficult people chapter is not the easiest thing to cover. So I'm like, how is this at the end? This should have been sooner, but it's okay. So, and I think we've all definitely had dealt with difficult people. I know I've had my fair share of 20 years in the healthcare field, well, 21 years in healthcare, working in a hospital for a lot of those years. And I definitely have learned a lot. And so I kind of wish I would have had these tools and resources years ago, but it's okay. We learn from experience too, right? I love that the goal is to prevent good people from becoming difficult and stop difficult people from being impossible. And I think this is like really key to our business, either people we're working the business with, people that are using the products, whatever that is. Like, we have a lot of really good people and we don't want them to be in a position where their fear, their emotions take over, and then they become a difficult kind of person to deal with, right? We want to be really cognizant of reading them. That's why all these other chapters are so important. So we can read people well and support them and help them and not like put them, not that we would, but preventing that emotional to switch over to that fear mode kind of thing. You hang on one second. Yes, what? I'm talking on book club. Now go see daddy if you need something. Sorry about that. And then I really like how she just acknowledges a lot of times fear is just that gremlin. It's a dress up of something else, and that it doesn't really present as, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, but it presents as other behaviors, attitudes, emotions, and other things coming out. And I mean, this happens like when my kid is going to do something crazy and get hurt or run out into the road or something, like you're like, oh my gosh, get out of the road. Like, you're freaking out at them and you look really angry, but your anger was just this fear of what could have happened, but it comes out as anger, right? And that happens with so many things, like so many things. I know with my joints and stuff that hurts, and I will hurt myself on accident, but then I'm mad because I'm hurting and I'm like, oh, like trying to get over this hurt without like freaking out my kids, so anyway, we all do it, and really recognizing that in ourselves. And it's really interesting having teenagers because they're more apt to like tell you to your face that how you're acting, which has been interesting. It's definitely a fine line of disrespect and insight, but it's all a learning experience for both partners there. And then just, when you think to just work situations, work people, real life examples, I'm sure that you've experienced all of this. So just identifying some of this I thought was really interesting. The downers have this fear of rejection. Show-offs have a fear of being forgotten. And you know what? I can't even read my writing. Passives, is that what that is? Let me find the chart. I knew that was going to happen. Yeah, passives. Fear of being criticized, and tanks, fear of being out of control. So taking control and being attention seeking. So it's really interesting. I kind of feel like I could fall into multiple categories depending on the situation. And so just even having that awareness is going to help us be more successful to not fall into that and like project that on somebody else. And then also, I love how she was talking about the high road and the low road of our emotions. And when we're that low road of emotional response and fear response is survival, but the high road of the emotional and fear is when we can think through things, and this allows us to thrive. So there's a huge problem when that low road is this kind of also goes with like the pathways in our brain. And so if you're constantly in this low road, making of decisions, emotional fear, that's your default, that it's harder to get out of that and make logical decisions and getting back on track into that thriving mode, you know? And I think during certain times of stress, life, you can be in more of that low road, but it's being aware and having the thought changes, right, to get out of that. So, and I think this is really, I think we even run into this with people that are like, I just can't, I'm just going to stop my plexus. Like these all of a sudden off the wall, like messenger or texting responses we get of people like, well, I'm quitting. And you're like, 2 days ago, you were saying you had more energy, you loved your pink drink, you were excited to help your mom get started, whatever. And then now it's like, so it's okay, what happened? Like, what happened? Like, I don't really think it's the products. It's, and we've talked about this multiple times before. It could be finances, it could be her husband, you know, the husband found out she spent money, it could be a detox, it could be somebody made fun of her for taking that stuff, you know, who knows? It's very, very likely that it's something else, not the products, not the experience. And so playing detective, but also being really supportive and caring through that situation. And that kind of gets down to where, you know, we want to just fix it. We want to be fixers, fix, versus hearing someone and hearing their emotions and playing that detective of naming the emotions and understanding the feelings and transforming the fear. So this is really important too, to just really get into that understanding before we can move past that and go into that transformation type. You know, what are we going to do about this? Like, how can I help you fix this? We really have to listen and understand and listen for those emotion words. And then that being said, she goes in to talk about toxic people not worth your energy. So these are people that when you're just even first starting to talk about plexus and they are just completely toxic, like, you know, we are here to help people, but people have to want to be helped. So they have to want to have a business opportunity. They have to want to do the work. We can't drag, convince, coerce, and deal with negativity and toxic people, you know, which I would definitely say that's not the norm. That's not the norm, but it does happen occasionally, right? And then I really also like how she talks about protecting your time and having those boundaries. So like, I really, really liked just that when you're going to say no to an event, a party, whatever, but thank you for asking. I'm not going to be able to make that happen this time. You know, thank you for asking. How wonderful of you to offer. This is a lovely idea. You know, being really genuine, but being really firm and strong in our no, like still being direct in that. I really liked that. And it really, really, when we like, don't give excuses or reasons. Like I was just telling one of my girls today, you know what, if my Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4 is to lay in my bed and still stare at my ceiling fan, because that is what I have set as my game plan, as my office hour, as my time block, then that is my business. Like that is my business. That is my plan. And it's no one else's business to know that I don't want to go to coffee with so-and-so or whatever, because it's my time to stare at the ceiling fan. That is my business, right? Like I don't owe an explanation for that. And that's been something really hard for me personally to like, not like give a reason. My old job, I work occasionally now, right? I don't know. It's just a hard thing to be a PT for 21 years and never work, right? So I work occasionally. And she's like constantly like, are you available? Are you available? Are you available? And the tendency is, no, I have my kids track meet. No, we have basketball. You know, like I don't owe her an explanation. I don't owe her anything except for one shift every 90 days. That's the requirement, right? But that tendency to give excuses and give a reason, the reason looks like an excuse. So, oh, and then I did write this down. Okay, so when the toxic people examples here on page 286, where the person will say, oh, you have another party? No worries, just hop over for a little bit, right? So this is where when we're talking to someone about plexus, we can be this person. We can be the one like, oh, that's okay that you already take vitamins. You should take ours instead, right? Like you can go around that conversation, but don't do it in a toxic way, right? You can offer like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're taking vitamins. It's so important to check, to keep your body in check and to supplement. Like, do you mind sharing what you're taking? Or how do you notice that you feel differently? Asking more questions around that. I mean, Plexus is amazing. We have amazing products. I find it hard to believe that there's something that could beat it, that could be better, but it is possible. We have to be okay with knowing that some people do get results with other stuff. And if we are toxic towards them, it's not going to draw them into wanting to try Plexus, right? You're busy? Well, I'm busy too. This will only take 20 minutes, da, 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 da. Like when we talk about doing this business and someone says, I'm really busy. Like, yeah, we can say like, oh, I totally get it. Like, I understand, the feel, felt, found is okay to use, but really getting into the feel, really getting into that identifying and asking questions and being in a relationship with them before you just jump on them and go, but busy people do really good at this business, like stuff like that. So just be careful that you're not the toxic person when we're dealing with talking to our people. And then going into chapter 14, I love that this experience that she had with Airly was that he was sincerely curious, and that made him super engaging. And I love that, Fallon actually talks about this too. Like she gets curious about people, gets curious about, all kinds of things. Well, what's holding them back? What's this? Like, when we're coaching our team, we'll get curious about what people are saying to us, getting them to dive deeper with us so that we can help. And that goes for even helping people get started with the products and business too. And I loved how she talked about, it was research. This is the research that showed this, but she depicts it in the book. Popular people literally make us feel good. And popular people are more attuned to social signals, social hierarchy, and relationships. And they place a higher value on these cues. So it isn't something that, how do I explain that? How can I say what I'm thinking? So, just that popular people, what we perceive people as being popular and stuff, they just either naturally or have really learned these social skills, and that's what deems them to be popular. And so the great thing about that is that we can all learn these skills and fine tune them. We have all this resource in this book, and then it allows us to have better relationships with people, which is going to help us have more impact out in the world, right? And then I really, really like how she said, it's not impressive when we're just talking about our accolades, our accomplishments, our rewards, but it is impressive when we really, really are tuning into other people and getting to know them. And that's important. That's why we post about your accolades. Look at Jackie. She just earned this as incentive. And it's not just an incentive. It's because she's passionate about changing people's lives. She's passionate about this. It isn't Jackie over here posting, I just earned an iPad, blah, 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 blah. I'm so great, right? That's why we post about each other and give each other those accolades so that I don't have to speak that for myself. It's okay to celebrate. It's okay to say, hey, I'm so thankful because of this. I'm thankful for this iPad because it's going to help my kids get their homework done and da, 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 whatever that is, right? It's okay to talk about that in a gratitude way and everything like that, but it isn't about me. And that's also why we don't post, hey, join my team this month because I want an iPad. Hey, join my team this month because I want a spa gift card. That is not what we want to do, because it's not really about us, right? It truly is about helping other people have a change in their trajectory of their life. So, and then being attuned to people, I thought this was really good. This definitely has to be authentic, and that we only really want to attune to people when we really truly want relationship and get to know them. So that was this was the one tip that she had, like, it be very careful not to be so in tune with people and you get to like kind of bring them in and then you ditch them, right? That's kind of like my friend posted, we're taking the kids on a cruise and the kids were da 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 da, and the kid, like, the parents are saying, you're going to meet all these friends on the cruise. And the kids literally said, but they're fake friends. They're our friends for like 4 or 5 days. And then we're never going to see them again in our lives. They're fake friends. And so with this being really attuned to people, making sure that we can follow up and continue a relationship with them. Otherwise, it's kind of like a turn and burn kind of situation, I think, and we don't want to do that. So just something to keep in mind, right? Like one of the things that I've really taken on at the gym, I try, is to get a group of people to take a picture with me to say, look, we did it. We have camaraderie. We got through this class. Like, we did it. Like, let's celebrate that. Let's show people that we showed up and did something hard today. Right. Not, and a lot of, oh, I look terrible. Well, we all look terrible. It's okay. Like, I'm like, I got a good filter. It's okay. But I'm trying to draw people in and saying, you did a great job completing this task or class. You did a great job completing this task class. Let's celebrate that. Right. So that was one thing that I think we can do no matter where we're at, hey, let's high five on the way out of work. Let's take a picture. We made it through our work day, whatever it is. And then I was curious if anyone on the end of 299 to 300 kind of has thought this through already, or if you're planning to, but what's your go-to conversation sparker, your favorite sweet spot on the social game plan? What's your favorite story? Practice telling that story. So those, I think, we can do. And then kind of she goes into the challenges. So that isn't something that I actually did yet, but I plan to, like, pulling this back out this weekend and really writing some of this stuff down and going with it. And I like too that she talks about picking a couple of things to work on, not trying to take every skill in this book and do them all at one time. So that's what I had planned to talk about. I'd love to hear from you guys since we have a tiny group.
Yeah, this is Sherry, and you know, 2 chapters that I was feeling the need to explain why you're saying no to something. I do struggle with that. I'd be curious if any call had some good tips for that. I mean, I know we said any tips.
So Sherry was asking in the chat, her question was around tips that others had for not feeling the need to explain yourself when saying no to something. Does anybody have any tips for that?
I mean, I think this is still something that I struggle with too. I think a lot of us struggle with this. And I liked the tip she had in the book of just saying, like, well, thank you so much for inviting me, but I won't be able to make that work, and just ending it at that. And it feels uncomfortable to end it at that. But I think the more we practice it, the more comfortable we'll feel setting that boundary.
I was going to say the same thing. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for sharing, Sherry. It was so good to hear your voice. I know we had a little audio issue there. I wasn't sure if it was me driving or what was breaking up, but yeah, so for tips on that, it is hard. Like, it is hard to just say, nope, I can't do that, or no, that's not going to work for me. I struggle with that. I'm learning to do this more at work. And that's really, really hard. Friends are typically more understanding, but I find it very hard to do at work, and this is something I definitely need to work on. So I do like the suggestions that she gave in the book, and I think I'm going to have to try them and practice them.
I definitely think too, like I've had people say to me, like, I've invited them to the gym or invited them to a plexus sippancy or invited them to church or whatever. And, people will say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. And I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm so offended. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. And that's it. Like, there is no feeling one way or another. And you guys, I'm a pretty emotional person, but I would definitely rather have somebody say, no, that doesn't work for me, I can't make it or whatever, and just say it and move on. And at least they've communicated. I have a lot of respect for that. When someone just simply communicates that doesn't work for me, I won't be there, versus not answering. Right. So I think that is a big deal too. And it feels weird, but if you think about it, if you think of someone that's told you, no, that's not going to work for me, but thank you so much for thinking of me, you're not offended, right? You're not like, I just cannot even believe it. You're just like, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. Moving on. So I don't know. It has to be personality too, that we feel the need to explain ourselves, or, but we're not accountable. We're accountable to our priorities, and our family and stuff. So.
Yeah, I agree with that, Elizabeth. I think there's a little bit of a personality component to that. Being an introvert, being an engineer, I often don't feel the need to explain myself. Just, nope, I'm good, thanks, and moving on. So for sure, yeah, I would recommend just practice that. Just say, nope, I'm all set, thanks, and just let it be.
My husband does that to me, and I'm like, oh, how dare you? like I said, I'm emotional, but and I have learned actually to do that with my kids, because they are like, they won't stop, right? And so it used to feel like, hey, we're not doing that right now because da 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 da. And I've quit giving, sometimes I'll, a couple of things. One, teaching them to accept what I said is what I said and what is going to be, because I'm the mom. And then once they're like, okay, great, I'm going to go play with this then, or whatever. But then if they later want to say, hey, do you mind telling me why we couldn't go to the park or something? Like later on, if you want to come and ask for an explanation, but they have to understand that no means no, right? Or yes means yes, or do this means that. And so we do it with our kids, and it definitely is there's less of that convincing if I just say, no, we're not doing that right now, you can go play with this instead, versus, well, we're not doing that right now because of this, and that's what she talks about. When people were saying, oh, I have another party to go to, and then the answer is, well, you can just come to my party then later. Like, when you give a reason, or then you're opening the door for people to then insert themselves into how you can still make whatever they're asking work. Whatever that is, could be they need you to do something for them, whatever, so anyway. Did you guys love the part where she talked about Airly just being genuine? I love that, like genuinely curious, and that made her feel like on top of the world, and having all that great conversation come out of that. So that really stood out to me quite a bit.
I liked that too, because it reminds me of all the times we've read, it was maybe in this book too, and the last one, but the more interested you are with people, the more that they will feel like supported and like heard and understood. So I think it's really important to ask questions and be more interested than interesting. And that was a good reminder, that chapter. But I really liked the difficult people chapter. And like you said, Elizabeth, I think a lot of us have dealt with difficult people, but it just gave me a whole new perspective, because I think a lot of times we see or we interact with difficult people and our first instinct is to just be frustrated and say, oh, they're so difficult, I wish they wouldn't be difficult, instead of saying, okay, in our heads, where is this coming from? It gives us a little bit more, we can have maybe a little more grace with them, or understand that it's coming more from a place of fear. And we can say, okay, maybe they just don't feel like they're being heard right now, or maybe it's whatever it is. And then we can still salvage that relationship without just feeling like, oh, every time they talk to me, they're just difficult. Like, no, let's figure out where this is coming from. And maybe we can make our relationship stronger, because I can figure out how I need to interact with them to make them feel heard, or whatever it is, so that I no longer feel like they're difficult and they no longer feel like they're not being heard. So I thought that was really eye-opening and helpful. Whether that's going to be people not taking their products well, people at your regular work life, or people on your team sometimes, like, I don't know, it could happen. So it's nice to have a little bit of perspective with that.
Absolutely. I love that. And I feel like there's always situations where we're going to be dealing with, where we have dealt with difficult people and kind of gotten through that shell to get past that difficult part, and it took me a while to learn this about my kids, especially as they got older. When they're little, everything's all out all the time, all the emotions, all the things, but realizing like, okay, you're not acting right. Did something happen? Like, can you tell me did something happen with so-and-so? Did something happen with so-and-so? Are you feeling left out at this situation? Like kind of asking, because they also, you can't just be like, well, did something happen? And then them just like tell you. And so it's kind of playing that detective work, and it's different when you're dealing with patients or coworkers or clients or Plexus clients, but it's just eye-opening, right? And everyone has a different, how do we say it? Like grounding of their nervous system at different times, right? I think it's easy to, at some point, y'all are going to catch me where my nervous system is not grounded, and you're going to be like, whoa, what's going on with Elizabeth, right? But that's not my norm. And so, of course, our ungrounded nervous systems make their way out in our most loved ones, right? With our family and our daily people that we're really close to, unfortunately. But that's where I feel like, oh, the nut job. I'm like, oh, she's writing about me and my husband, right? Like, you work through it.
Well, and I think it also helps us to see like where we are. Like, she asked us in the end to ask ourselves which kind of gremlins we have, because sometimes if we're honest with ourselves, we are the difficult ones. And then we can say, okay, I'm going to reflect and think like, what am I afraid of right now that's making me act this way? And then maybe it can help us to calm ourselves down too and be less difficult. So I thought it was a really helpful chapter.
Mhm. For sure. I love that. I think you had actually brought that up a long time ago, but just how your mom would always say, like, okay, if there's a difficult situation, do some self-reflection and make sure you're not being the difficult person. And I think you even just saying that your mom had said that to you, I was like, I've remembered that several times. So you can tell your mom.
I will tell her that. I'll see her tomorrow. Yeah, when I remember I was in high school or middle school and I felt like I was getting mad at everybody. And she's like, when you're mad at everybody, maybe you're the common denominator. And she actually made me like self-reflect. And I'm like, oh, it's hard to hear that sometimes, but we need to hear that sometimes. And I think that's why I'm not always good at self-reflecting, but a lot of times I look at myself more quickly than I look at other people to see like, what can I change to make this situation better? And then one time, Marcus isn't here, so I can say this, but I felt like he kept saying he was annoyed with this person and then this person. And I was like, maybe there's something going on with yourself. If you're annoyed with all these people, they can't all be doing something that annoys you right now. Like what's going on in you, in yourself that's making this happen. So yeah, that's something I've always tried to do.
I'm laughing because, Marcus and I are so similar sometimes. I'm like, yes, there can. There absolutely can be something wrong with all 5 of them at the same time. As I turn red.
I also love the difficult people part chapter. I did a lot of self-reflecting with that. Something that I've never really done before. But reading that chapter, I am like, I probably react to difficult people with withdrawing or passive, like just kind of like taking a back seat, which isn't very good either because you become more of a doormat, I think. And I don't know if that's just a defense mechanism or what that is, but I definitely fell more into like a passive or withdrawal category when I was thinking about how I deal with difficult people. But I didn't really have to practice on taking maybe a more softer approach, an inquisitive approach to that, and thinking about where their anger or where their difficultness is coming from and where it's stemming from, so we can get to the bottom of things in order to repair relationships. I don't know if this works for mother-in-laws or not, but let's keep our fingers crossed. But that's something that I think I took away from that chapter quite a bit, is how I'm currently responding and what I need to work on to move forward with that. And then I also love the genuine inquisitiveness, however you say that word right now. It's been a long day. But I absolutely love talking with people and having good, deep relationships, like meaningful conversations with them. And there is like nothing that kind of excites me more than sitting down like one-on-one or a couple people together and like diving into like deep conversations and asking, like unique questions or difficult questions and being open and talking about it and having that safe space to do that. And it's really great when you have somebody responding back to you. It's really hard when you have somebody that doesn't respond back to you, but I just really, really enjoy that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. So good. All right. You guys have anything else you wanted to jump on and share with us as we wrap up this book? I'm really glad we did this book. Really glad. It was very insightful, self-reflective, as well as communication outward too.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this book too. Like I mentioned, the first night of this book club with this book, that looking at the cover, I'd have never picked up this book by myself. So learned a lot, and it was so good. I think she even mentioned in chapter 4 that, you know, this is all things you can learn, you can work on. You don't have to be the popular person. You know, there's skills, and being curious with people is something I can learn to work on. I can learn to like people. All good. I'm enjoying the book.
I think Fallon used to say that. I think I don't like people, and now she likes people, and she likes being social, and she missed being social and stuff when she had been sick and different things. She's just the one person. I don't know a lot of people that don't like people. So when none of my people have ever said that to me, so that's why Fallon stood out. And for me, like, I'm like, how can you not like people? That doesn't compute, but I'm sure that's not true, that you don't like people. It's just learning to show the appreciation for others is coming out, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right, you guys. Well, thanks so much for sharing and jumping on. We'll see you next week for our new book. And I have it outlined as to what chapters and pages we're doing. So I'll get that post up ASAP, and then we'll know which to prepare for, but it's pretty quick read, so we won't have trouble getting through it. All right.